They were good friends. I said, I'd like to take him around. And we'll look in the back window. I says, I warn you, Goyo. I said, I warn you. It's going to stamp something on your mind you'll never forget. It's a horrible thing to see, but it's real. This is the wages of sin. And his dad said, let's go. So we went around there and we looked through the window. And he just cried and cried. And he said, why did you do it? Why did you do it? Then, later he thanked me. He said, I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I saw it. There's a young man that wants to serve the Lord the rest of his life. There's things we can't, you feel terrible. You just feel like tearing your guts out that someone would ever do such a thing. But finally, I think it puts our feet the right direction if we understand that this is the wages of sin. And in February of 2008, I believe I have this date right, Larry and I were down there in Potamo, and we made a deal with this young man. Seemed like he was going to make something out of his life. Young man, 16, 18 years old. His dad was in the States, making money, trying to help his boy to get started, and he made enough money, he bought a baler for this fella, and he's baling hay, and we're going to go down and pick up hay. Okay, this young man, I don't remember I don't remember what we told him. We thought this boy would be around for years. In December. This was in December of 2008, I'm pretty sure. This young man seemed to be coming up in life, being a respectable young man, working hard, and we were buying hay out of his field. And I was looking forward to witnessing to this young boy. But just like a lot of young boys his age, they dance the new year in. They got to start the new year with something exciting. So he was over at the dance at Baja de Agua, and on the way home, he and his girlfriend and another boy and his girlfriend were together and driving just way too fast. Had a horrible accident, and he was gone. I just couldn't believe it. This boy's gone. I wasn't real close to him, but it's just one of those things that just. And then we had another scrape with a sister in the church that, we won't. Her husband wasn't a Christian, and she didn't have any reason to live anymore because she found out about his affairs. She picked up his telephone and read the text that he was having with his girlfriend. She decided that she didn't have any reason to live, and she did some things. She attempted suicide that night, overdose. And she said, God forgive me, and then she took the pills. She survived. And I guess that was one of the hardest things in working through discipline in the church. How many of us have been through things like that? How could I get up after talking with her and realizing that she knew that she was committing murder? And how could I get up in the absence of the bishops and excommunicate? Tell her that discipline needed to be taking place. And when I myself had never been through what she had been through. The reason I'm saying that is because the church there, we wanted her to understand that the wages of sin is death. And we wanted her to have a good, clear opportunity. And she did. She repented. I wish I could say she's faithful today. But she still has an opportunity. Physically, she's still alive. The wages of sin is death. Two boys, the reason I brought up her name is while my wife and I were there counseling with her that evening and trying to understand why she did these things. We were about 200 yards from the highway, and some music going on out there, pretty much racket, and we don't live close to town. I said, let's go out there and see what's going on, and went out there, and sure enough, it's people we knew. Young people from Potamo having a party out at the end of our driveway. Why? Well, there's a little building out there that Jesse Reinford sold. And sold to someone from Potamo, and it was his son. He come walking out, and he says, "Is it you, Nathan?" I said, "Yes, it is. What's going on?" And he said, "Well, we're having a little party. It's a clean party," he said. The music didn't sound very clean, but I didn't see any beer bottles around, and here's this disco there. They have this disc where they were frying their food, and he said, "We're just having a good time." He said, "All of us are from Potamo. There's no alcohol." And I said, "That's nice." I said, "It's your property." He said, "I figured you'd come out here." This is pretty much racket, and it's all right. It's all right. And having a good time. And I stood there a little bit wondering, what to say to these boys, but I was drawing blanks. And I turned around, got in the car, and left. Okay. Went back into this Luz Maria's place there, and my wife and I continued talking to her. And the music kept on for about a half hour, and things started dying down. We heard hollering, we heard laughing, we heard shouting, and we heard vehicles taking off, and pretty soon I heard one of the most terrible racket that I've ever heard in my life. Just seemed like a wreck that wouldn't stop. It just wouldn't stop. And I run out there, and I get in the car, and I go driving out there good and fast. And here's one of the cars that was sitting there at the party. It was out here beside the highway, and another car that I couldn't identify all the way across the 4 lanes sitting over there upright. But this car looked like it tumbled. I don't know how it tumbled, but it was bashed in on every side. And there was 2 people inside that car. 2 young people. Both of them from Potamo. They're dead. Maclovio and Chava. Their sons. Their only sons. 18-year-old sons. Only sons in the family. I watched them take their last breath. They were still breathing, but I couldn't say nothing to them. Having a good time. There's 2 crosses out there. I looked before I come up here just lately. Somebody put some wreaths over these crosses. That was in October 2008. We could talk all night about the family crying and weeping and wailing and carrying on, beating on the ambulance windows because they didn't get there on time, blaming the policeman. I don't know. On and on it goes. They were sorrowing as people that don't have any hope. They don't. The wages of sin is death. That's what's behind this. And it's just incredible what these folks go through. Maclovio, since that, he and his wife have separated. And then you go to these funerals down there, and you watch these young people come in and look at the coffin and head out the door, and you're just glad it wasn't them, I guess. But it's going to, and everyone says the same thing. They say their time came. Do we accept that? Their time came. Is that true? Yes, their time came, but it was untimely. God had better things for these young people. I tell the older men down there, I said, God's speaking to us. Can we hear? I mean, this thing keeps happening. Can we hear? And we're living in a land of, there's violence all around us. It has to do with the drug turf wars, and people are dying. We're not talking about that. That was going on too. I'm talking about deaths that, independent of that. And the same thing's happening across the mountains in the camps, the Mennonite camps. It happens over and over and over. It looks like it's got to be more than normal. I just don't know what is going on. But finding out here in August of this year, some of the young boys that were part of our church, they lived there in Potamo. One of those, David Garcia, he was out on Saturday evening. And one of these, Pancho, El Oso Mantecoso, the one we call his son, about 21-year-old, he invited David to go with them to have a good time in town. Nah, he says, that's all right. He says, you're scared of your wife, aren't you? He says, come on, you just think because you're married you can't go. Well, there were 2 other fellas that went with him. 2 of them from back at Saragossa, and he went. Okay, 3 young fellas. They go to town. Anyway, I'm not going to make the long stories. There's lots of stories like that. These 3 fellas, David Garcia almost went with him. Why? Because he says, I've got my pocket full of money. We're going to have a good time. Who knows what kind of good time they had, but the fact is they never made it back home. They did. One of them made it in a box about this big. Ashes. The other 2, they had a view. They had brought him back in a coffin, but they didn't have a viewing for him. And David was trembling because he just about went with